We've got another one, Deej, with a massive spread here. This one is at 13.5 or 13, depending on where you're shopping. And people don't care. They are ripping the hell out of the Dolphins. 93% of the bets, 96% of the money. Yeah. 15,000 bets. So that will quintuple or sextuple by the time that this podcast comes out. And people are still probably going to take the Dolphins. I want to look and see if I can find a book that is 12.5 while we're live on the pod, because if it goes against my book, it goes against my faith, it goes against everything.
Your religion.
But you should be like teasing down the Dolphins from, if you can get them at 12.5 down to 6.5 is awesome. To win by a touchdown, I think they beat the brakes off of this Raiders team. This Raiders team has so much hype. I'm a little disappointed that more people aren't betting on them. There's so much hype surrounding this team. The one thing I do like, though, in this game, and I'm going to go ahead and lock it in, I think that the Raiders have let me back up. The Dolphins aren't the greatest against the run, but they're also like not bad. They're like kind of like middle of the table against the run. The Raiders under Antonio Pierce have really retransformed their offense to have Josh Jacobs as such a focal point, and it takes a little bit of the stress off of Aiden O'Connell. And it's seen in Josh Jacobs' numbers where he's popped off. He rushed for over 100 yards last game. I think he had 80-something the game before. His rush total for this one is set at 65.5. And he is getting the vast majority of the runs in he's getting the vast majority of the attempts for the Raiders this season, where a lot of these games the Dolphins are letting up like 90 rushing yards, 100 or just north of 100. And that's to multiple backs. For the Raiders, Jacobs has rushed 186 times this season. Their second leading rusher is Jimmy Garoppolo at 20 attempts, and then Zamir White at 17 attempts running the ball. So it's going to be Jacobs through and through the entire game running the ball. Mm-hmm. And that's why I really like him to rush for over 65.5 yards here. Because even if they start to like beat the brakes off of him, I think that he can probably get about halfway there before that happens. And then you're just banking on him to, over the course of the game, to get there, because they are making him a big focal point. And if he gets going early, then he'll get there with ease. So I'll be locking that in. Josh Jacobs over 65.5 rushing yards. I'm just going to price that at minus 115 because that's where I've seen it the most, especially for a player prop.
One thing that I'm finding pretty curious as I look at some stats for this game, the Raiders actually rank in top third for passing yards allowed on defense at 198.7 per game. And obviously with the Dolphins offense, they play through the run, but they're focused on getting the ball in the air, getting Tyreek and Jalen Waddle moving to getting the ball in the air. So if the Raiders can actually maneuver and find a way to stop the Dolphins, then you're going to have a tough time covering 14 points. However, this Dolphins team is just far, far, far better than the Raiders. I will likely stay away from the spread. 13.5 feels iffy. I backed them, the Dolphins that is, against the Patriots when the line was this big. And it just didn't feel safe, the entire game, despite it ending with them covering. So just a little bit worrisome we talk about it here on Sharpen the Public, how important public betting data is, right? So you're seeing crazy, crazy numbers towards the Dolphins here. That doesn't mean that you need to bet the other side, because we've seen that happen a couple times this year. 85+% of the bets were on the Lions a couple weeks ago, and then a few weeks before that, so many, I think 90%, and then it dropped to like 87 or something, where it was on the Dolphins when they covered against the Patriots. So you don't need to be scared of these crazy numbers, and that's kind of the point of what we talk about here on Sharpen the Public. But from my perspective, I don't necessarily think the Dolphins match up great against the Raiders defense, especially what you said with Josh Jacobs and the run against the Dolphins defense as well. So not saying that the Raiders are going to come out and win, but
I want to say something too. Like, part of the reason why their passing is so good for the Dolphins is because, one, they do so much motion. They do motion every play. But two, they are able to establish the run so nicely against teams where Mostert has had an amazing season. A-Chain popped off.
A-Chain they're getting A-Chain back too. Yeah.
And they're getting A-Chain back. And where I see the Dolphins succeeding and beating the piss out of Las Vegas here, Las Vegas is the fourth worst team in rushing yards per game allowed at 135.6. They don't have any Devon A-Chain player props up yet. The only place I saw anything fantasy or player prop wise was Underdog. I saw Mostert is like higher or lower than half of a touchdown rushing or receiving. I'm not going to mess with that, but I will wait for A-Chain props to come out too, because there is a world where I probably end up taking both running backs in this game, and I just think they run the ball a ton, which, you know what? If they run the ball a ton, maybe the Raiders cover. But I really do think that the Dolphins are going to destroy this Raiders team, because when you look at the hype that has surrounded this Raiders side, they didn't play anybody the last 2 games.
Right. I agree. Yeah, don't get me wrong. The Dolphins are far better, and they could easily win this game by 30 points. That doesn't mean that I'm not scared of the Dolphins covering and beating themselves, because the crux of the Dolphins is their defense. They've gotten not blown out, but destroyed by the Chiefs. I won't say destroyed. They've lost to the Chiefs, Eagles, and Bills because their defense sucks. And if they have holes, they can easily make it difficult to cover 14 points. And that's why I don't love the spread. I do like the total. I like the under. The under is moving. The total's moving, sorry. 68% of the bets on the over. Obviously, people want to see points in Dolphins games. That's not surprising. 51% differential towards the under. I love it. Not going to lock it in now. I'm going to see if that keeps moving. But, yeah. Again, the last thing I want to say is, in the last decade, teams off a loss who are a home favorite in the next week, which is Miami, also acting as the public side, are 185, 220, and 9 ATS, which is a 45% win percentage. So that includes Miami.
Yeah, I just don't. When you play the Jets and the Giants, your first 2 games with a new head coach, I would hope that you win. I really do. So congrats to the Raiders for getting those wins. Let's see if you're legit and put your money where your mouth is as a 13.5-point dog on the road in Miami. Is that all you got for this one? Because I'm excited to talk about the next one.
Are you? This is going to be a good one. The last thing I'll say about the Dolphins Raiders is Dolphins are off a bye, so maybe they're just hungry and off a loss. So like they could just be really, really needing this bounce back to just go murder the Raiders. Be like, okay, we're back.
It's going to happen.
Okay, you can intro the next one.
If you are watching this video, you made it this far, it means you hopefully like the analysis. So please give us a like, give us a subscribe, share it with your friends and family, everyone you know, share it with everyone you talk to, because that helps us out more than you can imagine. So really appreciate y'all supporting us.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for listening. This is always Sharpen the Public, the only sports betting podcast focused on leveraging public betting trends. As always, Andy and I are here Fridays to preview every week in the NFL, talking about public betting data and everything that you can't get anywhere else. So thank you guys for tuning in and listening to us talk about every game on the slate here. Please keep checking us out. Give us a like, follow, subscribe wherever you're listening to, especially on YouTube. We're continuing to try to grow that platform as well. So thank you for checking us out everywhere. As always, we're going to keep plugging away, and hopefully we can continue to see some teasers go through the hoop, see some golden rule trend hits. It's going to be a good week. I'm sending positive vibes to our trends. Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate it. We will catch you in the next one in the recap episode that comes out on Tuesday. Thanks for listening.
The boys bet better with beer.